Good evening, everyone. Tonight, if you hear footsteps and no one is in the room, just keep listening, but don't turn around. BLACKRIGE Stories, North. On an early winter day in 1998, a young American writer named Elliot Granger left New York City and drove to a remote town called BLACKRIDGE, nestled deep within the Catskill Mountains. He hoped that the silence of this secluded place would help him finish his first horror novel. Elliot rented an old wooden cabin built in the 19th century. The real estate agent said the house had once served as a Civil War field hospital, but it had been abandoned for nearly 30 years. The moment he stepped inside, Elliot felt that something was off. The air was cold and damp. The window panes were smeared with dust. In the attic stood an old mirror that looked like it hadn't been touched in decades. But the strangest thing was, that mirror occasionally reflected the figure of a person who wasn't Elliot. On the first night, while lying in bed reading, Elliot heard footsteps creaking across the wooden floor above him. But he lived alone, and the house only had 2 stories. When he grabbed a flashlight to check, everything was eerily silent. He found a small door nailed shut in the attic. It took him over an hour to pry out the nails and get inside. In the corner, he discovered a locked wooden box. After a few days of trying, Elliot finally managed to break the lock. Inside was a thickly dust-covered journal. The handwriting belonged to someone named Dr. Thaddeus Morrow, a field surgeon who had lived there over a century ago. The journal described bizarre treatments. Dr. Morrow had conducted experiments on wounded soldiers, trying to revive them using some mysterious method. They never left the house, and apparently still haven't. That night, Elliot dreamed of a door he had never seen before in the house. A cracked wooden door with a freezing cold brass handle. In the dream, he opened the door and saw a man in a tattered doctor's coat standing in the middle of a dark room, his eyes void of pupils. The next morning, Elliot woke up, his shirt drenched in sweat, and saw something strange. The door from his dream had appeared in real life, right in the middle of the second-floor hallway. He reached for the handle, and the door slowly creaked open, revealing a deep, endless darkness inside. The strange door opened into a small room, with nothing inside but a rusty iron bed and walls covered in charcoal scribbles. Elliot stepped in, and the flashlight he brought suddenly went out. In the darkness, Elliot sensed someone standing right behind him. He spun around, no one there. But when he turned back toward the door, it had slammed shut, trapped in the ice-cold room. Elliot felt a breath of freezing air whisper against his ear. The murmurs grew louder and clearer. They were cries for help, from many voices, men, women, even children. A soft click echoed. The door opened by itself. Elliot rushed out and saw wet footprints now trailing across the hallway floor, leading to the basement. The basement Elliot had been in before now looked completely different. He discovered a hidden chamber, filled with rusted medical tools, old syringes, and a surgical chair in the center. Above it, dried blood still stained the ceiling. In the corner of the room, he found a hidden medical file. It listed 7 patients, all of whom had died following Dr. Morrow's special treatments. And one horrifying detail, one of the names matched his mother's. He called his mother and asked about BLACKRIDGE. She hesitated, then spoke quietly. "That's where I was born, but I've never wanted to go back." The moment he hung up, the house phone rang, but the line had been dead for years. Elliot picked up. A raspy voice whispered, "You're repeating our mistake. Don't go back to the basement, Elliot." He immediately yanked the phone cord from the wall, but the phone kept ringing. That night, Elliot was woken by the sound of a piano playing in the living room, even though he lived alone, and there had never been a piano there. He went downstairs and saw the silhouette of a person in an old doctor's coat, back turned, playing the piano. The figure paused, then slowly turned around. The face had no eyes, no nose, just a shriveled, featureless mass of flesh. Elliot woke up on the floor, blood dripping from his ear. He couldn't tell if it had been a dream or real, but in front of him was a freshly written note, the handwriting trembling. "You shouldn't have come here. We can't leave. Don't dig beneath the floor." And so, Elliot decided to tear open the old wooden floor beneath the bedroom, where it seemed sealed shut. He raised the hammer and struck hard, until he hit something metallic. Elliot smashed through each floorboard. Beneath the rotting wood, he found a metal hatch sealed with rusted chains. After breaking the lock with his hammer, he opened it and saw an underground tunnel leading deep into the earth. He shone his light down the tunnel. The stone walls were damp, streaked with dried blood and claw marks. Along the corridor were tiny cells, each containing an iron bed and human skeletons still shackled in place. Elliot picked up a fragment of bone and discovered something horrifying. Every skull had a drilled hole in it. At the end of the tunnel was a larger chamber, resembling a secret operating room, filled with vintage surgical tools. In the center stood a massive stone table. Lying atop it was a fully intact corpse, preserved in chemicals for decades. It was Dr. Thaddeus Morrow. Beside the body was a small notebook. Elliot opened it to find the doctor's final confession. I tried not to save them, but to keep them. The souls I attempted to trap within their bodies, they refused to leave. But then one of them took over me. Now I'm no longer in control. Then Elliot saw the last line, written in a different, unsteady handwriting. You're hearing them too, aren't you, Elliot? Elliot stumbled back in horror. He raised his flashlight to the walls, where dozens of old photographs had been pinned, documenting the patients. One photo made his blood freeze. It was his mother as a child chained inside this very room. He bolted out of the tunnel, but every door in the house had been locked tight. Pounding noises echoed from upstairs, relentless, furious. Elliot screamed, "I'm not you. I'm not one of you." But then he heard his own voice repeating the words from upstairs, mimicking him exactly, like a spirit echoing his every word. He collapsed in despair. The flashlight slipped from his hand, rolling across the floor toward the old mirror in the living room. In the reflection, Elliot was no longer there. Instead, staring back from the glass, was Dr. Morrow, holding a surgical knife. 1 year after the mysterious disappearance of writer Elliot Granger, the town of BLACKRIDGE seemed to have returned to peace. Emily and Mark, a young couple, bought the house and began moving in. Emily was 7 months pregnant. She was a painter, hoping the quiet scenery would help her finish her first exhibition. But from the very first day, Emily began painting images she didn't remember imagining. Eyeless faces, dark hallways, a sealed basement door, and a man being swallowed by shadows. Mark discovered Elliot's notebook hidden in the chimney. Flipping through it, he found many pages crossed out, but one line still readable. "I'm not writing anymore. I'm just copying what they make me write." Emily began hearing the sound of a baby crying in the attic at midnight, even though her child had not yet been born. Mark dismissed it as a pregnancy hallucination. But one night, he saw Emily standing in front of the mirror for hours, whispering something to her reflection, and the reflection was smiling while she was not. During a prenatal checkup, the doctor noticed the baby's heartbeat was irregular. At times, it beat exactly like that of an adult. That night, Emily dreamed she was giving birth in the basement, surrounded by eyeless corpses, watching in silence. The one delivering the baby was none other than Dr. Morrow. When she woke up, she found she had covered the bedroom walls with strange hieroglyphs. But when Mark looked, the walls were completely blank. Emily began remembering memories she had never lived. She remembered being locked in the basement, remembered a man named Elliot finding her, and remembered that she had once been Elliot's daughter. In a panic, she checked her birth certificate, but all the information was blank. Mark searched the National Health Database and found no birth record for Emily. It was as if she had never been born, but had somehow been brought back. One night, Emily climbed to the attic, the same one Elliot had broken into years ago. On the wall was now a mirror, covered with a black cloth. She pulled the cloth away. In the mirror stood Elliot, behind her. But when she turned around, no one was there. The mirror cracked in two. Between the shards appeared the eyes of the baby inside her, wide open, black and soulless. Mark heard a scream. When he ran upstairs, Emily was gone. All that remained was a painting. A woman lying on an operating table, surrounded by 7 spirits, and in the center, a child being born with a sinister smile on its face. A week later, police found Mark wandering in the woods, mumbling over and over, "It will come back. Every generation, it always chooses one. A boy, around 7 years old, stood in front of the BLACKRIDGE house. A woman walking with him said, "Go on, you can play. The house is empty now." "What's your name, sweetie?" The boy smiled softly. "My name is Eli." 3 months after the disappearance of Emily and Mark, the authorities in BLACKRIDGE decided to seal off the house at 43 Greystone Lane, once owned by Dr. Thaddeus Morrow, then Elliot Granger. But things didn't end there. There was no evidence that Emily or Mark had ever lived at that address. No lease agreements, no hospital records, no witnesses who had ever seen them, except for an old man named Hank, a homeless man believed to be mentally unstable. Hank insisted, "I saw her walk out of that house with the baby, but she had no eyes, no eyes." A single mother brought her son to enroll in preschool. The boy often talked to himself and drew pictures no one could understand. One of those drawings sent chills down the teacher's spine. An old wooden house, a gaping basement, and faceless figures standing inside, just hollow shadows with empty eyes. The teacher asked, "Who taught you how to draw this, Eli?" The boy smiled, unblinking. "No one taught me. I'm the one who remembers." Back in the abandoned Greystone house, dust covered the large mirror in the attic. A spider crawled across. Then the mirror flickered to life, as if something on the other side was watching. And within the hazy reflection, figures slowly emerged. Elliot, Emily, the former patients, and Dr. Morrow himself. All of them stood behind a single empty chair. That chair is waiting for someone. Perhaps the next person to step into that house. Perhaps the one hearing this story now. A faint breath, very close, almost right behind you. Are you ready to remember?